I'm Priscilla Barrera with the Investing News Network, and I'm here today with Mike Rosenstreich, Managing Director of Hexagon Resources. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Priscilla.
So we are here at the Graphite and Anodes event, which is almost wrapping up. What's your main takeaways so far from the conference?
Main takeaways from the conference really are some of the supply chain issues, particularly in terms of mine supply, large volumes of mine supply poised to come on, but potential bottlenecks in the downstream processing, so that's one aspect. And the other one is the phenomenal growth rates that people are predicting for lithium-ion batteries and the impact that would have on the graphites. And look, I'm embarrassed to say I probably underestimated that growth rate. And I guess finally just reinforcing just how complex this graphite market is in terms of its extreme segmentation, highly fragmented market, particularly at the downstream end. And in my opinion, for Hexagon, that creates lots of opportunities.
Right. And then speaking specifically about the graphite market, what did you expect from 2018 at the end of last year, and were your expectations correct?
Well, obviously, because I'm going to be a vertically integrated graphite producer, my expectations are optimistic. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I was correct. But look, having scars and accolades from a long history in commodities and industrial minerals, and it's important to point out I do not regard graphite as a commodity. We want to position ourselves to be able to have diversified production so we can withstand price fluctuations. So when one product area is strong, and another is weak, we can still operate profitably. And we're also looking at at a diverse range of products, but aimed at the high end, which we're doing by leveraging off the back of our deposit, which is a high quality, highly crystalline material that's easily purified. So we're trying to differentiate ourselves on quality and diversity of materials, feeding into both the rapidly growing lithium-ion or battery sector, but also some good growth sectors in more traditional industrial markets.
And in your opinion, what was the most challenging aspect of the graphite market this year?
Well, I'm not in the graphite market today. We're developing our project. Our stage 1 project is actually fully funded with a major Australian resources company. So we're focused on the downstream. But what I see as the most challenging aspect that we need to prepare for and plan for is actually being able to market a reasonable volume of material. In Hexagon's case, we're looking to market 50,000 tonnes of concentrate flake, and by taking ownership of the downstream and fragmenting up into 3 different product lines, that is how we plan to market such a volume of material into probably at least a dozen different product types in 3 broad groupings. So I think the biggest challenge that we will face, as will many of our peers, is actually on the marketing side. And look, our approach is to actually focus on marketing products, understanding market sizes and market specifications, and then working back through our downstream processing back to our product and make sure we merge the two.
And looking ahead, what do you expect for 2019? More of the same, a better situation, a worse situation for the market and for your company in general?
Look, talking about the graphite market, all I could do is reflect the sentiments that's been coming out of this conference, and that sentiment is, I think, neutral to positive with respect to flake and graphite prices. I think what we need to be careful of here is that we may be guilty of oversimplifying price categories, and that's a risk, but I think some of the indices that are coming out certainly reflect sentiment. And people here are quite bullish on the prices. For our company in particular, we've got a really busy year ahead. We have this joint venture with Mineral Resources for our stage 1 project, which will next year see us complete a feasibility study. They've got a very tight timeline within which to get that project into production. And on the other hand, we're focusing on our downstream business, getting that test work to test a variety of different markets. We're doing that right now. And, it's one of the reasons we're here at Anodes 2018 is really to look for opportunities to collaborate where people are looking for material to be sourced from a safe jurisdiction such as Australia and are looking for the particular high quality technical specifications that our material offers.
Right, and I think you touch a bit on this, but what would you say is a mistake that investors new to the sector should try to avoid?
That's a really good question. What I find is, well, maybe it's not so much what investors new to the sector avoid, maybe it's what promoters new to the sector should avoid, and that is that in the graphite space, this is not a mining play. In my opinion, it's not about mining metrics or resources or grades so much as about marketing. Where are the markets? How deep are they? What are the specifications? So from an investor perspective, they will listen to perhaps a company representative talking about, I have the biggest resource, I have the highest grade, I have that. And that's fine. It's relevant, but it's not the main driver. The main valuation driver is that company's ability to penetrate specific markets and have a sound marketing strategy to be able to generate meaningful volumes of material at strong margins to actually create a business. So there is this detachment, particularly where the mining-focused promoters don't acknowledge that this is not a commodity, and if they don't acknowledge it, how can the investors understand that? Look, I know that in Hexagon we have struggled to connect our commercialisation message with our investors. We're working harder on that, and we're trying to show them the stepping stones to achieve a business outcome. I think that sort of summarises it.
Right, and in the current state of the graphite market, why should investors look into Hexagon Resources?
Well, of course, the classical answer is because we're seriously undervalued. But slightly more seriously is that, why do I make such a bold assertion? Simply because we have a high-quality project in Western Australia, in the north of Western Australia, so good jurisdiction, reasonably good infrastructure, into a port that's facing into Southeast Asia, a key customer area. That project's funded. The funding of that project is right through to commercial production. That is a huge de-risking of our project for Hexagon shareholders. We've seen several incidents recently where companies have stalled or flattened out their ramp-up schedule. They've had issues, and in the midst of releasing bad news to the market, they've had to go back to that market and raise more money at increasingly more lower prices. We don't have that risk for our shareholders because of that in terms of the stage one. And then if people look at the quality of our material and get an understanding of the diversity, the ultra-high purity that we're able to achieve at low costs, and the diverse nature of the segments of the market that we're targeting, I'd like to see that they can see a broad-based, sensible path to commercialisation. So watch this space.
And what would you say was the most important milestone for your company in 2018?
The technical test work that we're doing with our technical partner here in the US. Unfortunately, we're not able to share who that partner is, but this group has a very, very deep and long history, particularly with respect to purification technology and battery technologies, and they have helped us unpack a series of very positive technical attributes, in particular being able to achieve a 5 nines purity of graphite. The thing, when people are looking at more sophisticated end uses for graphite materials, they want higher quality. The best way to mitigate risks in taking on new supply is by the supplier having the highest purity. 99.95, the issue isn't that it's 99.95 pure, the issue is what is in that 0.05. So if you're dealing with 5 nines purity like we've achieved in our purification test work, that's a big risk mitigant for our customers. There's no such thing as a benign impurity. So I would say achieving that purity aspect and putting that into our flow sheet is probably the biggest advance that we've achieved this year.
Right, and my final question for you today, do you have any company milestones on the horizon that investors should be excited about?
Absolutely. We've been doing upstream work with Mineral Resources, and we've got a whole range of drilling outcomes and things which we've reported on a little bit, but there'll be results coming out on that. But as well, we're focusing on putting in a pilot refining furnace and really being able to report the technical outcomes in terms of our ability to produce this range of products I was talking about. So, very excited about bringing those results out over the course of the next 3-6 months.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.